Hello! I apologize for any background noise you may hear. I don't have the best kind of microphone. Actually, I'm using a web camera to record my audio. None of my microphones work. Anyways, I made a post on my professional manga group, Mangaka Masters Unite, on Facebook. Of course, any comment creators are welcome there too. But I made a post for the members to. The question was, what's the most important thing you've learned about writing manga? And I was just going to read some of the comments. First comment: to never figure it out on the fly, always have an end. If you don't know where your story is going, you're not going to know how to drive it in that direction. And it'll end up going off pretty much on a tangent, and your story is going to basically be an endless ramble of none storytelling. Alright, in the second comment, always think of more ideas for your story and try not to set any ideas in stone. This is particularly an interesting one because if you have everything completely written down, you cannot change it, your story is going to be very boring because you've already passed the creative process and that story's not going to be fun anymore. Technically, it's already been written. And if if spontaneity is pretty important in storytelling, now don't do something like big and drastic on the fly. No, the big and drastic stuff has to be completely planned. But let's just say you're typing out a story and you're like, hey, that would sound pretty good in the dialogue. Go ahead and write it down. Nothing is in stone. Alright, and the third comment: to just make it. Even if you feel it's wrong and could be better. We as creators tend to be perfectionists. And that's a bit of a problem because I know, personally speaking, I have redrawn my story 25 times. And the people that have followed my progress for a long time now have pretty much given up on me ever producing a finished book because I kept going back, oh, this isn't right, it has to be fixed, it has to be perfect. If you just make it, that's experience and you can look back on your mistakes. Of course, if you're doing like a gigantic series, something like Dragon Ball Z, you need to have the skills there, which is why a lot of professionals recommend doing one-shots or short stories or, short things just to get the experience for your bigger project. Now, all professionals don't do this, but it is highly recommended for the newer artists to do. Alright, and the fourth comment on the post: forgive yourself for the mistakes you make when drawing or plot holes you may have missed when writing it. Again, back to the perfectionism. If you spend so much time trying to make it perfect, it will never be perfect and it's never going to get done. Alright, and on to the next comment. Improve better than the previous pages and believe in what you're making. The page you drew is never going to be as good as the page you're gonna draw. And the page you drew now is going to be 100 times better than the page you just drew. Because you're making progress, and as you're writing, you're learning. If you keep, once again, the perfectionism, if you keep going back to improve the previous pages, you're never going to move forward. And the next comment: surpass your rival. This is a bit of also a thing with manga artists. We always think that we have to have rivals and enemies, when in the end, we should all be kind of like comrades. We're all in this battle together to sell a manga or sell a comic, or to write a comic. And we should all, kind of encourage each other and, give each other advice. This didn't work in the anime Bakuman because they were all stuck up. Like, that's pretty much it. They were all stuck up and they're just like, well, I don't want to help you with your story because mine's better. That's not the way to be. You need to tell them how to make theirs better. So that, if people do end up liking your book better than theirs, then well, I mean, just help people out. That's it. Just help people out. Alright, and the next comment. Build and design the relevant parts of the world before really putting the final draft into effect. For example, I'll write out a chapter outline. No idea, no restrictions, or whatever, just events and things coming to mind. Then I'll do concept art around that outline and get the concept ideas hashed out. Then I'll put it into final writings, thumbnails, and in the figured out world. If you put your characters in a setting you're not familiar with, the setting is going to seem flat. It's going to be pretty much the overdone, high school setting or overdone fantasy setting. If you're going to do fantasy, do something interesting with it. Otherwise, there's no point in it being fantasy. You need to have your magic concepts, your building concepts. All fantasy worlds don't look the same. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fantasy. It would just be set in medieval times. And this is really important, especially for us who do fantasies or world building. Don't copy what you see. Try to pull as much of your fantasy world from your imagination as you can. And for the final comment, never stop learning. Also, if you are curious about what I am drawing in the background of this video, this is a page for the manga I'm working on called Legend of the Erased. Pre-orders are actually open now. If you're curious, just message me or something about it. If you're interested in getting a pre-order. It should be coming out sometime this year, if I can get it all lined up. Yeah. I've redrawn this comic 25 times. So, I guess that would go into my own personal advice. Taking critique is important for manga, or any creator for that matter. But don't take so much critique and advice that your own work becomes something that isn't yours. This was a problem I ran into with my own story many times. People would say like, oh, well, it'd be cool if this happened, and I don't like this and this and that. And eventually, my story just became something that I didn't like. I didn't want to write this story, and that was a problem because, I had been writing this story for nearly my entire life, and all of a sudden I didn't like it, and that was a huge problem. That's actually why I took it back for the last time, because the previous one, I actually had books printed, I was selling at conventions, and it was selling pretty well, but I didn't like the story. I didn't like where it was going. I didn't like anything about it. There were so many problems about this story that I was supposed to be, really passionate for. And all of a sudden I wasn't passionate for it anymore. And so I decided to take it back. And this is the final rewrite. 25 times charm, right? And that is all the comments on the what is the most important thing you've learned about writing manga. I'm going to be trying to do more of these, question, answers, learning things. Let me know what you think. and have a nice day.